All right, we're all set.
All right. Well, good morning. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and just get started right now at 10 a.m. Welcome to everybody. I am Rachel Garcia, and we're going to go ahead and go through some House Bill 2609 updates and response time reporting requirements that are becoming effective January 1st, 2024. And we'll go ahead and get rolling here. Just so folks know, we are recording today's session so that we can make this available to anybody that may have missed the meeting or would like to go over the content we're covering today. We also promise to make these slides available to the Western region and all of our CON holders statewide. So again, I'm going to say welcome and thank you for joining today's virtual session. For awareness, we are conducting 4 of these sessions this week. This is the Western Region session that will run until 11 a.m. this morning. We got a lot of material to cover, so it will be a full hour. We also have sessions scheduled this afternoon at 3 o'clock and Thursday at 10 a.m. If anyone is unable to join this session, you are welcome to plug into those other time slots. Or as we said, we will make sure that we make these slides and a recording available for anyone who misses these sessions. So what are the goals of our House Bill 2609 regional meetings? For this week, our goal is to provide information on the new House Bill 2609 requirements for all certificate of necessity holders. And that is for the new requirements that again are going into effect January 1st. Of 2024. Our sessions this week will specifically cover CON annual response time reporting, GPS waiver requests, and EMR ambulance driver requirements, followed up by Q&A as time allows. I want to give a big shout out to Rod Reed that we have on the line for the Western region, because Rod has volunteered that if there are any questions that we cannot cover today, he will be the point of contact for the Western region, so we can make sure that we capture all those frequently asked questions. You will see as we move along in today's presentation, we actually have an FAQ format teed up for you all because we want to make sure we are answering and clarifying the most commonly asked questions. All right, so let's jump right into it. First, I want to go over some summary of the House Bill 2609 changes that are effective January 1st. Just up front, the new laws under House Bill 2609 are applicable to all CON holders, and that is effective January 1st. Separate from House Bill 2609, the department has received approval to write rules to address new statutory requirements and issues identified in the last 5-year rule review. I want to make sure that we're clarifying upfront the rulemaking is a separate and ongoing process that requires engaging diverse stakeholders, as well as review and approval by the Governor's Regulatory Review Council, or GERC. The rulemaking is separate from what we are covering today. Today's meeting is really focused on House Bill 2609. So separate from the rules. What do we need to know about House Bill 2609? It does have some significant changes. Effective January 1st, 2024, CON initial and amendment application decisions must be issued within 180 days of receiving an application. Notification to interested parties must occur when the department receives a CON initial or amended application or issues a decision. And review of response times should happen at least every 6 years based on major population changes since the last census. Some additional parts of the legislation are ADHS will develop state standards for emergency medical responder, that is EMR ambulance drivers that serve rural populations less than 10,000 persons or provide interfacility transport. A GPS device must be installed on every ambulance to record response time measurement, or an ambulance service must apply and be granted a waiver. And annual response time reporting must be submitted in a department-approved format and be made publicly available. And I'll tell you, based on our stakeholder requests, again, this session will focus on these 3 new requirements. One of the things that we wanted to clarify up front, because we have received questions, is that House Bill 2609 does not authorize any changes to CON holder response times listed on a certificate as of January 1st. Said another way, we want to clarify your response times on your certificate are not changing. CON holders will continue to be responsible for the response times listed on their certificate in 2024 and will still be required to demonstrate compliance with individual response times during each CON renewal application. So up front, we just want to share that is not changing. And another side note is neither the statutes nor the proposed rules package authorize any immediate changes to CON holder response times. Of course, under House Bill 2609, response times are now subject to review at least every 6 years. But we want to make sure we're making this clarification up front. No changes as of January 1st to response times. And as we get rolling here talking about the items that we said we would cover, I just want to give a shout out to our ADHS team that is on the line. We have several team members that have been working really hard with our vendor to provide streamlined solutions to ease new reporting burden for our CON holders. And so please help me to thank them. It's not an easy lift to make sure that we have all these reports available in the system for everyone. And we want to make it as easy and user-friendly as possible for everyone moving forward. So big thank you to our DHS team. We appreciate you guys. And thank you to everyone on the line for your patience with us as we roll this process out. So let's talk about EMRs first. What does House Bill 2609 say about emergency medical responders, that is EMRs, or ambulance driver requirements, since sometimes we use those words interchangeably? So here it is. Under House Bill 2609, under 36-2207-17, we now have a new definition for emergency medical responder programs. And that means a program that includes at least the following: emergency vehicle driver training, CPR certification, AED training, training in the use of non-invasive diagnostic devices, including blood glucose and pulse ox, and training on obtaining a patient's vital signs, including blood pressure, pulse, and respiratory rate. EMS Council and our Ambulance Safety Work Group and Education Committee have met and provided some recommendations for EMR ambulance driver standards. House Bill 2609 does authorize exempt rulemaking for ADHS to be able to develop rules to outline state standards for EMR ambulance drivers moving forward. And that is to ensure safety for patients and providers moving forward. This is for CON holders that serve rural areas, that include populations less than 10,000 persons, and for CON holders that provide interfacility transport. As the work groups have met, they have reviewed current national and state standards for all levels of EMS providers. NHTSA, NASEMSO, and National Registry all have education standards, scope of practice, and other certification requirements in place for all levels of EMS providers, including EMRs. The Arizona Department of Education also has technical standards already in place for EMRs with a comprehensive description of an education program. And as the state moves forward, we look forward to continuing to meet with the work group and discussing how we update the state standards moving forward. The work group has talked a lot about NASEMSO ambulance driver best practices for training development. They've reviewed training requirements, course development, and how you refine training courses with input from subject matter experts. And certainly everybody is very interested in making sure that our standards moving forward are in alignment with House Bill 2609, which says that all EMRs or EMR programs will participate and have vehicle driver training moving forward. So we'll continue to look at those best practices and make sure those are incorporated in state standards. Some of the EMR training course requirements that have been discussed are also up on the screen to be able to be consistent, again, with what is required now in ARS 36-2201-17. The minimum number of contact hours being proposed is 70, which includes didactic instruction and practical skills training, and a minimum of 5 contact hours for clinical and field training with at least 5 patient interactions. This has not yet been codified in rule, but as part of House Bill 2609, the state will have exempt rule writing authority starting January 1st, and these are the training course and medical considerations that have been discussed for EMRs moving forward. So at this point, we'll go ahead and we'll keep moving through some of the rest of the material we have teed up for you all. And we have some frequently asked questions that we'll go through as we hit on each of these topics. Rod, please let us know if there are any questions in the chat or if anyone's raising their hand as we move along. But I'm going to go ahead and keep moving in the interest of time. The next topic we want to cover is, what does House Bill 2609 say about GPS device requirements for ambulances? Certainly, this is a hot topic that we've gotten lots of questions on. What it says is, under ARS 36-2232C5, beginning January 1st, 2024, install and maintain an electronic global positioning system monitoring device in each vehicle that is used for transport to record on-scene arrival times for response time measurement. The department shall provide a waiver on a department-approved form to an ambulance service that can reasonably demonstrate it is unable to meet the requirements of this paragraph. So what does that mean? Effective January 1st, the ground ambulance registration application and inspection process will assess if an ambulance is equipped with a GPS device that meets these new requirements. And to clarify, a GPS device may include an automatic vehicle locator or AVL, or a mobile data terminal or MDT. If an ambulance does not meet the requirements under Title 36 by January 1st, then the CON holder must complete a form to demonstrate it is unable to meet the new requirements and request a waiver. Just to clarify, ADHS will provide a waiver to all CON holders who can reasonably demonstrate their current GPS device does not meet requirements during 2024. This is a new requirement, and we want to make sure that we're giving organizations an opportunity to apply and seek a waiver if they can reasonably demonstrate their current device does not meet requirements during this first year. And based on feedback from stakeholders, ADHS understands that not all GPS devices, that is AVLs or MDTs, are configured or capable of accurately measuring response times. And as a result, we will provide an annual waiver to CON holders that apply for one prior to January 1st. I think I saw a hand raised, and I'm just going to go ahead and pop up our frequently asked questions that we're starting to get on this topic. And while I do that, let's see, Rod, do you want to go ahead and call on the person that may have raised their hand?
Yeah, that was the Kingman Fire Department.
I don't know if I should wait until the end. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I just have a question referring back to the first slide where it says all transport units. What about those agencies that are using chase vehicles? Were we going to get a availability of their times also to show whether those times are being accurately recorded? So in our area, we have a bunch of BLS ambulances and maybe a paramedic chase vehicles at times. I think it's important for us to gather that information too, but I don't know if that's part of this bill or not.
That is a great question. The bill does not say that chase vehicles are included. The GPS device requirement is specific to ambulances, and ambulances are defined separate from the situation you're describing. And so I can't tell you that the House Bill 2609 applies to chase vehicles, although as a best practice, that does seem like something that we would recommend.
Yeah, even to the extent of where we have ambulances where they take the gurney out, and now they're saying it's not a transport ambulance. It's now, it doesn't do transport. So therefore, it's not considered a transport unit because there's no gurney in it, even though it's an ambulance. I just feel like that's a workaround, I guess.
Yes, and so to answer your question, it is not specifically required of this new law that goes into effect January 1st. But of course, for all of our local jurisdictions and PSAPs, we do recommend working collaboratively to make that possible. If that is something that your community is interested in, that certainly is a best practice.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep rolling through some of our material here. There is an FAQ on the screen that I don't think we've covered yet, and so I'm going to bounce back to the EMR topic really quickly. One of the questions that has come up is, will EMR ambulance drivers be allowed to work in rural areas with populations under 10,000, or for companies that provide interfacility transport starting January 1st? And we want to clarify that EMR ambulance drivers can only serve as ambulance attendants under these specific circumstances if they follow either the state standards to ensure safety for patients and providers, or receive approval from an administrative medical director on file with the department in the EMS portal for each CON holder. So there are two pathways that can be followed for EMRs to be utilized as ambulance attendants starting January 1st. And we just want to make sure that folks do know that there are separate pathways, and certainly we can talk about questions related to either pathway as we move along. Next up, we wanted to make sure we're covering, how do I request a waiver if an ambulance in my organization does not meet the new GPS requirement by January 1st. And remember, this new requirement is for every ambulance to install and maintain a GPS device. So what do you do if you have an ambulance that does not meet this new requirement? We have a waiver form that will be available in the EMS portal at ems.azdhs.gov. I'm sure most of the folks logging in today are familiar with our EMS portal. Once you log in as a CON holder, you can click on Applications. From there, you click on View Provider Applications. You search for Ground Ambulance GPS Waiver Request Form and click on Apply Now. Provider information will auto-populate. I don't know how it does it, it just does it. You enter the number of registered ambulances that will be in service without a GPS unit. On the grid, click the pen and paper icon to select the ambulance you are requesting the waiver for. You click on the resource category type. It's a drop down, and you select waiver requested and click Done. You can apply for more than one ambulance by repeating steps 7 through 8, and you will be able to see all the ambulances you are requesting the waiver for on the grid. Then you select reason for requesting the GPS waiver from the drop-down multi-select menu. You select a time frame estimate, and then you'll provide your good faith effort information. I'm not sure how large the text may be on your screen. For that last question with that red arrow, it says, please provide the department with any information that demonstrates a good faith effort to bring this ground ambulance into full compliance with House Bill 2609 requirements under the new ARS 362232C5, effective January 1st, 2024. So we are indeed asking for each ambulance service to reasonably demonstrate why they can't meet this requirement and what they intend to do to bring the ambulance into compliance with the new law. You then enter your password, enter today's date, and click submit. There is an attestation process that's involved where you have to make sure that you are saying, I am authorized to submit this request on behalf of the named ground ambulance service, and that the information is accurate and true. Some of the questions we're getting coming into us are here up on the screen. I can go ahead and read through them to make sure we are covering these questions with the Western region, but let me go ahead and pause here and see, Rod, does the group have any additional GPS questions for us?
I have not seen anybody raise a hand or ask a question, so.
All right. Well, I think I might have heard someone chime in. No? Okay. Well, I will read through what we have teed up based on the questions that have come into the department so far. One of the big questions, when will the GPS waiver form be available for CON holders to access if they need to request a waiver from Title 36 by January 1st? Ground ambulance GPS waiver request forms will be available in the EMS portal at ems.azdhs.gov starting December 15th, 2023. And the department recommends that providers seeking a waiver complete and submit the form before December 31st. That's actually a weekend, so we want to make sure you guys get that information in and submitted to the department prior to the end of the year. And of course, we will make that form available as early as December 15th for anybody that needs to go in and submit that waiver in this first year. Next up, we keep getting asked, do AVLs or MDTs meet the GPS device requirements? And ADHS recognizes that there are many different GPS devices and interoperability varies across the state. If a registered ambulance has an AVL or MDT that is not currently configured to record on-scene arrival times for response time measurement, then ADHS encourages the CON holder to submit a GPS waiver request form with information on current barriers and how long it will take to become compliant with the new law. There are many different devices out there, and so we're not going to be able to tell you definitively based on a brand whether or not that meets the requirements. But certainly if you have questions or concerns about one of your specific ambulances being compliant, we would point you towards the form. And we can certainly follow up during the registration and inspection process if there are different or additional questions. Rod, at this point, do you think we've covered it if there are no hands or other questions in the chat? Because we can certainly move on to our next topic.
I think so, but the question that Kingman had about the chase vehicle kind of raised one in my mind that I haven't heard anything about, and that's to say we've got a motor vehicle accident and we've got multiple ambulances responding. Is it when the first one gets on scene, or is it each individual? Because sometimes the backup is coming from quite some distance away.
And Rod, is your question specific to GPS devices or response times or both?
Well, mostly just on the response times.
Mhm.
Does each ambulance responding to that multi-patient incident have to meet those response times?
That's a great question. We would expect that each ambulance would have their own record of on-scene arrival because of the way that the new statute is written. And actually, it's a great question, especially since we're going to transition into the definition next.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and move on to our next topic. And Rod, keep thinking of that question so we can make sure we cover it if this next couple slides does not answer it.
Okay.
What does House Bill 2609 say about annual response time reporting requirements for CON holders? Well, it has amended Title 36 to now have some additional specific requirements about response time reporting. And I hope I don't put you guys to sleep. We're only 26 minutes in, but I'm going to read to you now what ARS 362232A3 says. It says, regulate operating and response times of ambulances to meet the needs of the public and ensure adequate service. The rules adopted by the Director for Certificated Ambulance Service response times shall include uniform standards for urban, suburban, rural, and wilderness geographic areas within the certificate of necessity based on, at a minimum, population density and geographic and medical considerations. In yellow highlight, this is where we see the definition for response times. The calculation of response times shall begin when the public safety answering point contacts an ambulance service for dispatch and conclude when the ambulance service arrives at the dispatched location. On-scene arrival times for response time measurement shall be documented by the ambulance service using dispatch or global positioning system data, or a combination of both, and kept on file. Response time data that is compliant with HIPAA shall be filed annually with the department. When dispatch or GPS connectivity is not available, the ambulance service shall manually document on-scene arrival times for response time measurement. In highlight, the response time data shall be filed in a department-approved format, and the department shall make the response time data publicly available. And so here we see now a definition for the calculation of response times. And we also now see that the response time data shall be filed in a department-approved format on an annual basis, and that should be made publicly available. So what does this mean? Effective January 1st, response time data has to be submitted to the department in a department-approved format annually on a yearly basis. The department-approved format will include a standard report template from ImageTrend that will comply with these new requirements in Arizona Revised Statutes, as well as the AZ Peers NEMSIS version 3.5 standards. And that will be for data elements that we call E times 03 when a unit is notified, and E times 06 when a unit arrives on scene, for ambulance responses only. And to meet these new requirements in Title 36, CON holders must submit a report using the department-approved standard template in the EMS portal. For this first year, we're asking within 180 days, that'll be July 1st for all CON holders. And reports will be made available at ems.azdhs.gov in order to meet that new requirement that all of these reports will be publicly available. Now, I want to make sure we are talking about the distinction, the difference between how we currently capture response times as part of a CON renewal process versus this new annual response time reporting format. Just as we said at the beginning of the presentation, we want to clarify CON holders will remain responsible for complying with response times currently listed on their certificate. Your certificate is not changing. And so when it does come time for your renewal application, there is recurring renewal application response time reporting that is still outlined in rule under Article 9. And on the left-hand side, you see CON holders must continue to submit a response time reporting analysis based on their individual certificate response times due when they submit their application packet for renewal. That is not changing. That is still a requirement under the renewal process to make sure that you are in compliance with the terms of your CON and your individual response time reporting. So we want everybody to think the way that you currently do your renewal response time reporting, that will remain intact. Each provider will still be responsible for what you submit at the time of renewal. Separate from the renewal process, we now have this new annual response time reporting method that is outlined. And on the right-hand side, you see new CON holders, actually all CON holders, must submit an annual response time report in a new standard department-approved format, and they must upload that new report in the EMS portal by July 1st of this year. We want to make sure folks know that these new reports, the ones we're talking about on the right-hand side, those may be made publicly available, and they may also be subject to review under the new House Bill 2609 requirement that response times are reviewed every 6 years based on any major population changes. And again, the purpose of this slide is to make sure folks know there are two separate reporting requirements. The reporting requirement at renewal is unchanged. The new reporting requirement we're talking about here today is the annual response time reporting, and that is separate from renewal. So how do I access the new annual response time summary report? And to give you some insight, you're going to access it using AZ Peers, which we have, I think, something like 180 providers in the system already that currently use AZ Peers. Step one, how to access the response time report using AZ Peers Elite. Well, first you log into AZ Peers. From there, you click on Tools and you click on Report Writer. You use the search box to find the report. Use any keywords from the report title. Here it's listed as House Bill 2609 Response Times Report, 911 Immediate Service and Emergent Response. You see on the screen, you click to open the report. You select filters as needed and click Generate Report. There's a note here that the filters are optional, and you can filter to a specific date range or to a specific agency if you have access to more than one and want to report, or that is generate the report for separate purposes. You'll have to wait for the report to generate, and then you'll hover over Actions, hover over Export, click on PDF, and a PDF should download to your computer. You'll save it to your computer, and then you'll follow instructions on how to upload the report in the next step. To give you some insight into what the report will look like, you see a screen snip at the very top of this page. We're going to show an example in future slides so that you can get familiar with what this reporting will now look like with the new response time reporting summary. But you will export this in a PDF, and it indeed will be summary information. It is not patient-specific information, it is summary information. One of the questions we've gotten is, what if my organization has not started reporting to AZ peers as of January 1st? How do I access and submit a response time summary report? This is a very small number of organizations that have not started reporting to AZ peers yet. But we want to make sure that for those agencies in particular, especially since they are smaller rural agencies, that we are providing support for them to be able to meet this new legislative requirement as of January 1. We have an alternate process for our non-AZ peers elite users, and we will offer a geocoding request template for those that are eligible. Just to be clear, CON holders must utilize the AZ peers format to comply with this new Title 36 requirement, since it is the department approved format. The geocoding request option will only be available for CON holders who were not submitting data to AZ peers as of January 1st. But to go through that process for anyone who may be eligible for this alternative process, the steps will be: you download the template to request geocoding. You'll request a secure email link. The department will send a secure link, and then the provider will send incident data back to ADHS. ADHS does the geocoding and assigns urbanicity for all of the incidents reported. ADHS will then share the outcome and send the outcome via a secure email. And that will allow the provider to summarize the data in approved response time format and upload the data to the EMS portal. So if you fall into this category of a non-AZ peers elite user, in your first step, how do you access the geocoding request template for this alternative process? You will log into the EMS portal. You'll click on applications, click on view provider applications, search for a response time report template, click on apply now, click on download attachment, and the geocoding request template for the non-AZ peers users as of January 1st will look something like this. This shows all of the fields that are required in order for the department to be able to receive information and geocode that information. Once we get that information back, of course, those providers will be able to complete the remaining steps to be able to submit their annual response time summary report. And the final step is, how do I upload the annual response time summary report to the EMS portal? So spoiler alert, it's in the EMS portal. The second step in this process is uploading the report in ImageTrend, aka our EMS portal. You click on applications. From there, very similar pathway, you view provider applications. You then search for response time report submission. Click on apply now. Provider information will auto-populate. You click on upload file, upload your response time report, and click save. There is an attestation process involved in submitting the data in this format. You certify that you are authorized to act on behalf of your organization, and you also have to attest to the information being accurate and true to the best of your knowledge. Once you complete that, you enter your password, you enter today's date, and you click submit. So what will the new annual response time summary report look like? We're going to give you a sneak peek of that now. Here you can see on the screen what we've been working on with the vendor. This again is titled the House Bill 2609 Response Time Report. It includes ambulance 911 and immediate service by response mode. You can see here the format is different than what is submitted at the time of a renewal application. And to clarify once more, renewal application response time reporting analyses are separate than this new response time template form. So keep in mind that that will remain separate and you will still submit the same response time analysis when you submit your renewal application for your CON. This example on the screen is to meet that new annual response time reporting requirement only. To talk a little bit about what is included in this report, we actually have some slides that go over the specific data elements that we have in AZ Peers. You can see here that we talk about response mode to a scene. The top is emergent responses, and that is responses that are recorded as emergent in the system. We also have non-emergent responses, and that is responses that are either recorded as non-emergent, emergent downgraded to non-emergent, or non-emergent upgraded to emergent. There are 3 different options. We have immediate response calls in the 90th percentile, and we'll talk about how that is calculated. We also have call volume and urbanicity, which is defined in rule, and the following slides will further define what each of those categories mean in rule currently. There are some limitations that are listed on the report. Currently, there's a disclaimer that is towards the bottom that says, this report includes ambulance responses only, and extended response times may be due to mutual aid outside of a provider's service area or other factors outside of a provider's control. We also have some descriptions at the bottom about the difference between emergent and non-emergent. And again, the following slides will talk a little bit about those data elements that are included here. And we are absolutely looking forward to future opportunities as the state migrates to what is called NEMSIS version 3.5 as a whole, because NEMSIS version 3.5 puts us on the path to be able to standardize so much of this moving forward together as a state. So let's talk about relevant data elements. In the interest of time, we're not going to go through all of these in detail, but we want to give everyone an idea of which data elements are being captured here and being included in this annual response time reporting format. To calculate response times, we have unit notified by dispatch, date and time, E times 03. And then we have unit arrived on scene, date and time, E times 06. We also have type of service requested, E response 05. Response mode to scene is E response 23. That is how we determine emergent versus non-emergent responses. The last data element on this page is primary role of unit, which is under NEMSIS version 3.5, and transitioning to unit transport and equipment capability under NEMSIS version 3.5. E-response 07 is the new name of the data element. Next up, we have incident patient disposition, which is E-disposition 12 under version 3.4. And then unit disposition, E-disposition 27 under the new NEMSIS version 3.5. There are some other terms and definitions to keep in mind as we are geocoding all of this data. Data elements that are important are scene GPS location, or eScene 11, and incident scene address. And some of the additional information under eScene is very important in this regard. Last but not least, we have our urbanicity value definitions. For scene locality, we have urban, suburban, rural, and wilderness areas that are defined in both Arizona Revised Statute and Arizona Administrative Code. That is rule under Article 9. Urbanicity means the specific geographic region of the scene locality as defined in Arizona statute within Article 9. This element is populated with the call's urbanicity based on the geocoded incident scene address location provided by the EMS agency. And just to be clear, these are definitions that actually have been in rule for about 20 years. And we do not anticipate that these are going to be changing, especially at this point in time. The definitions and the reporting will be based on the current definitions and rule. Those, again, are not expected to change. Urban area means a geographic region delineated as an urbanized area by the U.S. Census. Suburban area means a geographic region within a 10-mile radius of an urban area and population density equal to or greater than 1,000 residents per square mile. Rural area simply means a geographic region with a population of less than 40,000 residents that is not suburban. And wilderness area means a geographic region that has a population density of less than 1 resident per square mile. So how do we calculate this stuff? Well, if we haven't put you to sleep yet, the data elements used in calculations are response times in minutes. And that is, you take the time the unit arrived on scene and you subtract the unit notified by dispatch time. That's E times 06 minus E times 03. The difference equals your response times in minutes. In this specific form, we are capturing the 90th percentile, and that is the number of minutes of which 90% of the calls are within. So if your 90th percentile equals 10 minutes, for example, that means that 90% of your calls have a response time of 10 minutes or less. If your response time for 9 out of 10 calls was under 10 minutes, then it would show as faster on the report. If your response times for 9 out of 10 calls were longer, then it would show as longer on the report. It all depends on the number of minutes of which 90% of the calls are within. Again, there's a disclaimer listed on the bottom of the report, and we have it listed there. There are inclusion and exclusion criteria that we are going to make sure are followed to ensure that we are not capturing or including response times for calls that are either canceled or non-EMS calls. The exclusion categories are listed on the screen so you can see which types of dispositions will not be counted against you. Again, these types of dispositions will not be included in the response time summary report. To keep it short, it's canceled calls and non-EMS calls. How to view submitted annual response time reports. We have a page that is teed up on our EMS portal to make sure we're compliant with making all this data publicly available. And finally, we of course have received some questions on this topic, so we have a couple FAQ slides ready to share with you all. I think I have about 4 or 5 questions that we've already received that we can go through, but let me pause there and ask Rod. Rod, any questions that you would like to cover on this topic before we jump into the FAQs?
I do not. And I haven't seen anybody raise a hand or ask anything, so I think we're good. Oh, there we go.
Right on cue.
Right on cue. Perfect.
Just
Go
a
ahead.
quick question about the, are you, since they don't have to report when they're canceled units covered by other units, are we going to track that? How many times they've been canceled by other units, or is that not reported so we don't get to see that at all?
That's an interesting question. The inclusion exclusion criteria is intended to make sure that the response times are including all calls that should be captured. If there are additional, let's say, quality assurance reports that may be helpful to develop as we move forward, we can certainly look at those types of opportunities. But at this point, we want to make sure that if a call is truly canceled and it does not meet the inclusion exclusion criteria, that we would appropriately exclude that.
No, that makes sense. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Rod, this is a quiet group. Do you think we put them to sleep yet?
No, I don't think they're asleep. I think you've done a great job of covering most of it.
Hey, Rachel, this is Patrick Moore. I have a question. I appreciate Rod coordinating this for us. In regards, two questions, one from the first earlier and one for applicable now, but in regards to the EMRs, it said that for IFTs, they were acceptable. Let me back up. EMRs are acceptable in populations less than and or if you're doing IFTs. So in a population situation such as mine, where we're above the population threshold, but we do IFTs, can those EMRs that are driving that ambulance also be used in the 911 response fields as well?
Chief Moore, thank you for that question. The short answer is no. The ambulance attendant, if the ambulance attendant is an EMR, they can only be used for either an interfacility transport or to service a population of less than 10,000. So the short answer is no.
Okay, that was a question that had been posed to me through our AFDA e-board. And then the other question I have applies to for the agencies that respond to engines as well as ambulances, and I'm confirming this, my phone's going off. The ambulance response times will not get credit for if an engine is on the scene prior to the ambulance. It's only if we're logging strictly the ambulance response times, correct?
Correct. The inclusion exclusion criteria only looks at ambulance responses. Any other apparatus are excluded from the report.
Okay, that's the questions that I had so far. Thank you.
Awesome. These are really good questions. We are going to be capturing the questions that are shared here today to update our FAQs and make sure we're covering all the most important items that the community wants to make sure we have clarification on. So please keep the questions coming. I do not see any hands raised, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure we cover the FAQs that we have on the screen so far. When will the annual response time report template be available for CON holders to access to comply with the new Title 36 requirement in 2024? The vendor is working with us to make sure those reports are available in AZ Peers and the EMS portal starting March 1st of 2024. That is our absolute deadline. Of course, if we can make those reports available to you all anytime sooner, we will notify you as soon as those have launched. What date range will the initial annual response time reports include? And when will they be due to comply with this new law? The reports will be due by January 1st of 2024. And that is simply to ensure that all providers are compliant with the new law in the first year. And the initial report will cover January 1st of 2023 through December 31st of 2023. The last question we keep getting, and I think we probably covered this one, once annual response time reports are submitted by CON holders, how will they be publicly available? And the answer is reports will be publicly available on our EMS portal. Some agencies have asked if they are required to make them available on their own website. Certainly you can do that. That is up to each provider if they want to make those reports publicly available on their end. But to meet this requirement, the state will be teeing them up and make them available on the EMS portal. One of the other questions we've gotten is, why can't the state just pull the report directly from AZ Peers? Why is it necessary for CON holders to pull the report from AZ Peers and then upload it to the EMS portal? And the answer to this one is, since AZ Peers is a quality assurance database, in order to maintain the confidentiality and security of patient protected health information in Peers, The CON holders reporting to Easy Peers are required to download their own response time summary information and then upload it to the EMS portal. And this allows the state to maintain a steel wall between Easy Peers and the EMS portal. And this allows the state to make sure that those patient records remain confidential and secure. So we thank you for being willing to do the 2 steps. And again, this allows us to maintain the integrity of each system. I think for the most part, that covers the questions we've received to date. Of course, if there are additional questions, we still have 5 minutes remaining and we can stay on the line to try to get you as much info as possible.
Anybody out there, there are no bad questions. We're all going to be held to this, so.
No bad questions, just bad answers, right, Rod?
Thanks, Pat.
I agree with that, Chief Moore.
I just want to put in that I really appreciate that last Q&A, because that just shows that it is you guys take that very seriously, the confidentiality. Okay, Matthew Taylor, we have a hand raised.
Yes, sir. It's Matthew Taylor from Gila Bend Fire. I do have a question. So we currently do not have a GPS tracking, but we are in the process of transitioning to the Phoenix CAD system. Do you guys have any specific recommendations on GPS tracking, or do most of those CAD systems meet the requirements that are needed for this law?
Gosh, that is such a good. I'm getting a little feedback, so forgive me. I don't know if everyone's getting the feedback.
Yeah, Matthew, mute.
Sorry about that. At the state, we are unable to recommend a specific brand or vendor when it comes to GPS devices. So in terms of what information we can share or recommendations we can share, we are somewhat limited, only because we cannot go with a specific brand or vendor. What we can say is we understand that not all systems are designed the same and interoperability differs. If you are in the beginning stages and you will not have your GPS devices installed by January 1st, then I can absolutely recommend to you that you complete the waiver for all of your ambulances that will not have those devices installed as of January 1. When our EMS coordinators come out to do the inspections at the 12-month intervals, we can absolutely reassess at that time and see if there are specific questions that we might be able to address at that time. But I'm sorry, I can't give a brand or vendor recommendation.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? It is a quiet bunch.
Well,
Real quick, I'll interject real quick. Hey, Rachel, it's Patrick Morgan. If you want, you can coordinate with Nick Ellis. He's also, I know he attended yesterday's meetings and he's been well involved in this program, but you can coordinate sending your presentation to him, and we can get that distributed to the other 144 fire districts on the state and post it on our website through Arizona Fire District Association on the EMS section, if that'll help with you guys in the distribution of the PowerPoints.
Oh, that is excellent. Chief Moore, thank you for that offer. We will absolutely take you up on that and make sure we get the presentation out, not just to the regions, but our associations as well. Also, as follow-up, if there are questions that we have not been able to cover today, thank you again, Rod. If WACMs would like to route questions through Mr. Rod Reed, we will make sure that we capture those questions and that we update these FAQs before we get this slide deck out to everybody. Rod, is there anything in closing that you would like us to keep in mind as we get ready to refresh these slides and share them out with each region?
I do not. I think even in your response to Matthew Taylor, I think that so a waiver is going to have to be done for each and every ambulance that will not have that GPS as of January 1st. So it's not I can do all of my ambulances with one waiver. It's each ambulance needs that, correct?
That's a very good question, Rod. I'm going to pull up really quickly for anyone that does want to stay on the line for 1 minute longer. We have the ability, let me go back to slide 22 if it'll allow me. We have the ability to capture for the initial waiver, one waiver up front for each CON holder. But I want to clarify that we still, within that waiver for each CON holder, do indeed need to know the ambulances that will be in service without a GPS unit. You can see on the screen that we will still need the vehicle information for each ambulance that will be in service without a GPS unit. So while the waiver form initially can be completed for a CON holder, please note that we do need the vehicle information for each vehicle that will be in service without a GPS unit as of January 1.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, thank you guys. All right, well, appreciate you hanging out with us for a minute longer than you had to. We will certainly follow up and we'll get these slides distributed widely, and thank you again for your time.
Rachel, this is Rod again. Just real quick, if you have something that you think of later on and you want to run it by Rachel and her folks, it's rod.reed@wacms.org. WACEMS is WACMS. So thank you.
You're awesome, Rod. Thank you guys. Happy holidays.
All right, thanks, guys. Everyone, take care.